Happy National Salami Day, and welcome back to the Sandlot Cast, the podcast about our uber competitive fantasy football league. With me this week, I've got Hillers and I've got Nick. What's going on, gentlemen?
Hi, guys. Yep, not much. Just working on what I'm going to say in the next couple of minutes here. Should be amazing.
Hillers, do you have any strange or random diseases that you caught recently that you'd like to tell us about?
Not that I'm aware of.
No? Okay.
No, I mean, I'm going for some life insurance. I'm sure this blood test will be an interesting tale of the tape.
You're going for life insurance? You don't currently have it?
No.
No. Yeah, you want
what
to get
am
that.
I worth?
You probably have it through your work.
Yeah, you have to have. You have a government job. You should have it through work.
But you're going
there's a standard issue, but
you're going for like some term stuff or something like that, right?
Something a little better than that.
Yeah. Gotcha. Anyway, no one cares about life insurance on the podcast. So.
Or anywhere else.
And we can talk about what diseases we find on your life insurance test next podcast. So that said, Nick, any strange or random diseases that you've been afflicted with recently?
That's a loaded question. That's not fair.
It's not that loaded.
It's got to come up organically. You can't just throw this.
It's a yes or no question. Tell them what you have.
Contracted Lyme disease.
Lyme's disease. Is it Lyme's or Lyme?
Lyme,
yeah.
Lyme. Like any mongrel you would find in the street, our commissioner.
Yeah, I'm starting this off great. Whoever's going to take over. So I may not be around that much longer, guys. So we should probably get a co-commish ready to step up in case I.
What is the line of succession in the Sandlot League? Is this in the Constitution? Have we developed the line of succession in case Lyme disease were to encumber Nick so badly that he would perish?
Well, I think what it is, Hillers is the last. Hillers is number 12 on the list because he was just.
Maybe based on the power rankings. Is that how we do it? Or
yes.
Yeah.
Based on the amount of money you had left over from the draft in reversed order.
I feel like we're detracting from something. Nick, how in the hell did you get Lyme's disease?
To be honest, I have no clue. If you guys want the whole story, I noticed that I had this weird rash on my stomach, and then I noticed that I had this weird lump in my groin area, and I had just come back from the gym, so I thought I had a hernia.
Can I just stop wanting to hear the story now? Yeah, this whole thing seems.
So a bunch of weird symptoms. Went to the doctor. They said Lyme disease.
Basically, yes.
What's the treatment for Lyme disease? Is there
pills? They just give you some pills.
Chemo or something, or what's the deal?
It's just pills and lots of bed rest. If you ask my soon-to-be father-in-law, it's lots of couch rest, beer drinking, and watching football. So
that doesn't sound so bad.
No, I think it works out pretty well. Okay. So I know what I'm doing on Sunday.
Well, I got to get through this. Otherwise, you'd be screwed, man. You'd have to win a league or something.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, anyway, let's get into the podcast here. This is our Week 1 podcast, so as we do every year, we're going to get into our draft overview. We're going to give each team a grade on their draft. Totally prepared for this, and we're not going to wing it whatsoever. Then we're also going to do power rankings, and we're going to do predictions. So Anthony is not here. Unfortunately, Anthony is traveling. He's mere miles from Hillers, but did not feel like making the trek to Hillers' basement so that he could podcast. Appreciate the effort there, Anthony. Really love your dedication to the podcast and the show. Appreciate that. Nick, on the other hand, Lyme's disease afflicted. He can barely move. He can barely walk. Listen to him breathing. Look at the rash. Look at his face, for God's sake.
It looks pretty sickly.
I look like a tick.
And here we are, and here he is. But
get that screenshotted. I want that as his commissioner photo.
That's right. So, anyway, that's our commish. Manning up. I'm ready to go. So let's get into it, gentlemen. Draft overview. We'll start with you, Hillers, since Nick just joined the call, literally about 6 minutes ago. What were your overall thoughts on the draft and how it went? The tempo, the rules exchange. What are some things that stick out to you?
Well, I think the league is really getting it together in terms of the general process, going in, getting the rules, discussion stuff. People are a lot, more focused than they were in years past, and everybody kind of knows the score, and that part works okay. But for the draft, it was such a weird draft. There were so many things that stood out that were unusual this year. Low quarterback prices, large numbers of people with large amounts of money left over at the end of the draft, just sort of all over the place, bidding on people, the pacing of it. It's like players didn't get expensive. It's like they were way too expensive in the beginning, and then they didn't get expensive again until way longer than I think a lot of people thought. And it just ended up with, I think, a lot of people's expectations of how they thought that draft would go, I doubt panned out like they thought it would.
Right. Nick.
Yes.
From what you remember of the draft, what are your thoughts on it?
I think Hillary said a lot of it. I think the rules discussion was interesting. Not a lot got passed, but we did discuss a lot, and we probably could have passed a lot more. But speaking of, you have done a lot of good research so far, with at least providing us with analysis on why you want to change this defensive scoring. And I think it's something that if we just had more time, we could have gotten more into it and put it together a better case and got more people on board. But as far as the draft itself, yeah, it was just. I think that there was just a lot of talent out there, and people had a lot more money than we've had in the years past. So I think that there was just like a lot. People were just going for not normal values. People were getting great steals, and then people were overpaying for someone, and then there was no one left, and then there was, like, I don't know. It was just weird.
Yeah, people didn't know who they were saving their money for. I felt like I feel like everybody thought. I'm saving my money for one of 6 people, and so when one went by, they didn't really think it was an emergency.
And then there was number 6.
And then JD's paying $35 for Bilal Powell, and everyone's like, "What the hell is going on here?"
Yes.
And then the draft was over.
So Bilal Powell went for 35. LaShawn McCoy went for 39. So
yeah,
that tells you about draft timing, if anything, right? Like
TJ Yeldon went for 7.
That's about right.
That's probably about right. To me, it was quarterbacks. The highest quarterback that went in the draft was $17, and that was Drew Brees, which seemed like a crazy good deal at the time. But when you look at how devalued quarterbacks were this year, I don't know if it's because of the depth of the position or because of some of the scoring changes we made, or just based on – I'm not sure what it's based on, but Drew Brees went for $17. There's almost always a quarterback that goes for 30+, or at least 25+ in our league.
I think next year that might correct a little bit. It's easy in the preseason, especially lately, to look at all the sort of meta hype that goes on around fantasy, and everybody's saying, "Oh, wait on quarterbacks, wait on quarterbacks." You can get 2 that are perfectly good in late rounds, and it's fine. But there is a distinguishing factor between guys at the elite level and guys that are sort of in the middle. And once those teams sort of start to see they're losing close games and there's maybe a 5, 6, 7 point difference in their quarterbacks, they might be interested in upgrading that position a little bit more than they were this year.
So Nick, we can get into this a little later, but you were somebody who really waited on quarterback. You did last year too. It worked out for you. Do you think it worked out as well this year? I mean, it's hard to say.
Just looking at the prices of the quarterbacks, you can tell that it went like that. I mean, I can't believe that I got Matt Ryan and Fitzpatrick for $1 each. Speaking from personal experience, just because those are people that, I mean, who did I got Carson Palmer last year for $1. I think that it just goes to show you how deep the quarterback position is. And I guess it's like that all over the place. So not all over the place, but just the way the tide's gone is that and I don't think it had anything to do with our scoring. I think because the scale it would still scale appropriately even if we're doing 6 points per quarterback.
Okay.
So yeah, no, I don't. Yeah, I know that didn't really answer your question, but
no, that's fine. I mean, it's hard to answer that this early. I mean, nothing's really happened yet, but there were 7 teams that came in needing a quarterback, and not one of them paid more than $17 for their quarterback. I mean, that's pretty crazy. Normally, they're more are kept to start off. Like normally, I feel like we have a lot more quarterbacks kept, and I don't have that up right now to look and see if that's true, but I feel like that's true. So I'm going to go with it as a fact.
So it's true.
Yeah, so it's true.
All right. Well, if you look at the quarterbacks that were kept, I mean, you have Andrew Luck, Ben Roethlisberger, who I believe was kept, right?
Roethlisberger, Rodgers, Luck, Russell Wilson, Cam Newton. And Derek Carr was kept, actually. I'm sorry. So Dave kept 2 quarterbacks.
That's a good 2 to keep, though. I feel like one of those guys could easily be a trade piece for somebody that it feels like they've got some room.
There's a lot of people trying to trade quarterbacks right now.
That's true. I got 3 on the block. No offers yet.
After a draft when nobody seemed to want quarterbacks, that's a tall order. So but we'll get into that a little more. Let's get into our divisional breakdown here. We have named the divisions. Anthony, Evan, and I, who were division winners last year, have kind of sent a couple of emails back and forth. We haven't really come to a consensus, so I made an executive decision. Our division names will be sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Those will be our 3 divisions. Nothing too fancy. And a lot of people like to shut up Hillers as our 3 divisions, but I didn't want Hiller's name. I didn't want Hiller's name to be on one of the divisions. I feel like that'd give him a big.
Should be on my division.
We didn't need that one.
So I can own it when that's the champion comes from there.
So sex is one division, drugs is the next, and rock and roll is the last one. So we're gonna roll with that. In our sex division is where we're gonna start. That is, we're doing this in the order that is listed on my standings webpage. That's the order that we have chosen to do it in. Gentlemen, we're gonna give grades to each team. Brief, 60 seconds for each person here on their draft if you can, and then a quick grade on what you would give it. Your own grading scale, just make it up. We don't really care. We don't have a grading scale, so we'll just go with that.
Is this the one where you graded them beforehand? And if so, can you explain your system? Or is that Power Rankings?
This is. I'm sorry. Sorry.
There's no grading system. I have not graded anything beforehand.
Your division is what, Merrill?
So we're starting with the sex division. This is Iron Pirates, Miscreant Crew. We'll start with.
And then drugs involves PBJ?
Is my division with PBJ.
Sure does.
Well, it involves JD.
Done.
We'll say that. And then rock and roll.
If you refresh the browser, you'll have the 2 divisions.
Okay, nice.
That's how a commission does his job.
Wow, that is efficient commissioning right there. I feel like we haven't had that in years. Make the Sandlot great again. All right. Here we go. Sex division, starting with Iron Pirate and Miscreant Crew. Iron Pirate came in. He kept Adrian Peterson for 28, Thomas Rawls for 19, AJ Green for 28, and Travis Kelce for 11. Big draft picks included Jeremy Langford for 27, Devin Funchess for 13, and that's about it. He got Yeldon for 7, Tyler Boyd for 6, and then a bunch of 5 and unders. So, Nick, we'll start with you. On your draft here. Tell us if you could, and you can go a little longer since it's your draft here if you want to, but what was your strategy going in? How did it pan out, and what grade would you give yourself?
So, yeah, you bust our, but you bust my, you comment that the league that we're in kind of skews our draft strategy in this league because it's so much deeper than this one. I don't know if you guys have heard, but I'm in a 16-team league, 53-man roster league, and so it kind of does all your research for you, but I think the problem is that you get a little bit too deep on the research and you kind of buy into a lot of the stuff that you start reading, and you probably start reading more into the players than probably a normal person does. And I think that probably a little bit too much research is probably what hurt me in this draft.
More upside-based.
Your sleepers are sleeping too deeply.
Yeah, Sammy Coates, Michael Thomas, and Tyler Boyd. I didn't want those guys, but I thought that there was enough hype around them that they would have gone for more than, for more than $20 combined.
Right.
Those 3 players because it's not like I was going after these guys hard, especially to get 3 of them. If I had 1 or 2 of them, that'd be fine.
You were just price enforcing a little bit.
I was just trying to price enforce a little bit and drive the market, but then people were like, "Oh, well, why am I going to pay $6 for Tyler Boyd when I don't know? There's actually proven guys that are out there that I can get for $10."
Right.
So, and then again, that's an example of people who when someone was nominated. So this guy was what these guys were nominated pretty early, so I sort of jumped in on it. And
did you have a strategy going in, like a target or?
No, because the wide receiver was deep enough that I wasn't necessarily trying to get anyone. I thought I'm gonna be able to fill my roster with the receivers that I want and be fine with it. And I think that if I had just got Michael Thomas or Tyler Boyd or Sammy Coates, well, not so much Boyd because I have AJ Green, but if I had just got one of those guys, I'd been fine. But I ended up getting all 3 of them, and it's well, my hope is that one of them can, that 2 of them can hit, and I can move one of them, but it's going to be few and far between because wide receiver is so deep now. So I think I'm just kind of screwed right now with that, and I have to play the waivers, and hopefully something will pan out.
Yeah.
But like I
said,
see, I don't think my draft's that bad. My draft was actually that bad, especially considering how much I had drank before the draft started.
It's not an excuse.
I think Actually, my team's actually a lot worse than it was because we've already had one waiver wire run. So I actually give myself like a D plus.
Okay. Hellers, what are your thoughts on next draft?
I think the strength of this team is in his keepers. I don't think he really improved himself too much in the draft. I don't think extra highly of Jeremy Langford. I think it's probable he loses his job based on at some point in the season, just based on how he did when he had the opportunity. I could be wrong. It's all speculative, but I obviously bought his backup thinking this is not a guy who's going to be around for a long time. And Nick said what there was to say about the wide receivers is. He was buying in on sleepers when there were guys that were actually like starters or number twos on teams that were going for comparable prices there. So, I don't think he improved his situation. I don't think that means his team isn't competitive, but it does make it harder for him to trade or do any sort of early season moves. And he's kind of hoping he can run the matchups, I guess, on his quarterbacks. It's not risky for any player that you spend $1 for, but maybe for a position as important as quarterback, you might want to invest more
I'm not playing.
than $1. And so I give it like one blackout drunk karaoke song. It seems great at the time, and then you see what happened later, and you're like, oh boy, that I would have been better off to just sit down and stay where I was.
My rebuttal to that is There's no quarterback controversy. I'm just riding with Fitzpatrick.
Okay.
So if I'm going to pull Anthony now, if anyone wants Ryan Mallett or Matt Ryan, I'll trade it to you.
You should get Matt Bryant on your team as well and see if he can confuse somebody.
Maybe.
Yeah, that's a good strategy, actually.
Heard that worked.
That might be one of your few outs. Nick. We try to grade best and worst draft. Right after the draft, and it's really hard to take it all in right then. A, because we've been drinking, and B, because we're roster baiting to our own team so much that it's really hard to look at anyone else's. So this is, I don't want to sugarcoat it too much, but this might be the worst draft I've ever seen in our league. I'm sorry. I just you got left $37 on the table.
You can't judge a draft by that, though.
Sure, you can. $37 would have got you LaShawn McCoy almost. I mean,
no, but that's revisionist history. That's such a bullshit argument. Oh, well, you have $37 left. Yeah, well, you also don't know what you're going to have. Like I could have got
hindsight.
Here's what I know. I know you didn't bid on some players because you thought they were $1 or $2 too expensive. Well, you have 37 left at the end, so you were wrong when you thought that.
Fucking A. Jesus Christ, no! But you don't know that at the time. Would you?
No.
Okay, so Harry, let me ask you this then. If I then turned around and spent $37 on Bilal Powell, would that have been better? So I left no money on the table.
Yeah, because you can actually play Bilal Powell
because then
instead of Devin Funchess, maybe.
So stupid. No, so I can buy Bilal Powell for $2 and be like, you know what? Instead, I have a potential keeper because I only spent $1 on them, or I can overspend and have.
But who are your potential who did you buy instead? Where are these values? Where is this upside, Nick? I don't.
Such a stupid argument.
Okay, what's your opinion?
I'll tell you what this. I have more upside in Tyler Boyd than someone does in Bilal Powell for $37.
Okay.
You think Tyler Boyd's going to be a keeper for you this year?
I think that Tyler Boyd is more of a keeper at $9 next year than Bilal Powell was at $40.
Yes. Okay, I'll agree with that.
So what game are you playing? Are you playing the you have to win now?
I'm playing
the fact that we have a dynasty league essentially where we're trying to build keepers and keep moving on and build a team around our players.
Well, you did pretty poorly at that too, I'll say, because
you just gave yourself a D. I'll remind you.
I know.
I'm not arguing that, but I'm arguing the point that you left $37 on the table as a valid point about a bad strategy.
It's not a major point.
Okay.
You can't predict the future. Okay. My point is, the reason I don't like that is because I would rather spend that money up front. People tend to go and let guys like LaShawn McCoy go for 39, let guys like Randall Cobb go for 23, or Keenan Allen go for what he
was especially bad.
Keenan Allen go for, or Drew Brees go for 17. Let these guys go for what they went for because they feel like, I don't want to go $1 more. I feel like that's too much. And then at the end of the draft, you look and all of a sudden you've got all this money left. I'd rather spend those extra few dollars at the beginning of the draft when these good players are out there and get them on my team, people I can use, instead of at the end of the draft saying, well, I left a lot of money on the table, but I sure do have some upside.
The way you phrase that, Mike, it makes it really tough because, what you're doing when you make that decision to let those guys go isn't saying, oh, those guys are worthless so much as based on their price, you're making assumptions about the prices of future guys, right? And so
You have
it's
to do
not
that.
it's not. I get it, and it's not like you're passing on them. But and so I understand what Nick is saying is okay. Well, in hindsight, boy, I really should have bet a couple more dollars. But it is when you leave a ton of money on the table, saying you did not make good estimation of what player value was going to be, and as a result, you probably missed out on some opportunities. So, I'm inclined to split the baby on this one. Yeah.
That's not the only reason I'm saying your draft was bad, Nick. I'm just saying that is a factor that it was bad. There are a lot of reasons.
Fertile ground.
Your number 2 receiver is Devin Funchess right now, who's never done really anything. I mean, he had a couple good games maybe last year, but he hasn't really done anything. There's not a lot of people on this lineup that I would put in my starting lineup and feel comfortable with, other than your keepers, which are great. But that's the only reason. So I'm giving this an F just because I just don't think it. I'm sorry. I don't want to be dishonest to our listeners. I don't. But I mean, I think if I were looking at how to improve it, and we spent a lot of time on this, so we need to move on. I know, but maybe you can move AJ Green for like 2 or 3 guys that provide value, like come the trade deadline. If you're in rough shape, I mean, that's a guy you might be able to move. I don't know, but my thought. We don't know anything. Let's also throw this disclaimer out there. We don't know anything. Tyler Boyd was a guy I was actually targeting. I really wanted him, and he's somebody I wish I would have spent an extra couple bucks on, and I had $5 more I could have spent on him to go for. It turns out. So, maybe I should have done that. But
maybe.
All right. Moving on. I love you, Nick. Sorry you have Lyme disease. Kangaroo Court is our next team. Evan came in. He kept. I got the beer's giving me the burpees. Came in, he kept Lamar Miller, 23, Ryan Matthews for 6, Julio Jones for 26, Dante Moncrief, who he traded for the day before the draft, for 10, and Tyler Eifert at 7. His big draft picks were LaShawn McCoy at 39, Drew Brees at 17, Emmanuel Sanders at 11, Andy Dalton at 10, and Christian Michael at 15. Also had some other stuff, obviously, but and he got D. Hopkins, not DeAndre, apparently. Nick, let's start with you here. What do you think of Evan's draft?
I mean, we just said sure. I mean, it's Evan's draft. Like, I mean, how can you? What can you really say about it? I mean, we say that in a good way. Like, I mean, Evan always knows. He always has a strategy. He comes in here. He knows what he's doing. He's always got a solid team around him. Yeah, I'm sorry. Like, I mean, this is just one of those deals where I don't have anything to say, just because
just a solid draft.
Just a solid draft.
Okay. What grade would you give it?
B plus.
B plus. Okay. Hillers.
It was quite good. A lot of the picks that people said, "Wow, I can't believe that happened." We're here. And there were not very many capable running backs left. And so to say LaShawn McCoy is going for $39. If it had been a clean slate, okay, and everybody got to bid on everybody, maybe that would have been high. In the context that it was probably lower than it should have been because people were thinking, oh, I just saw Ezekiel Elliott go for $54. I'm going to have to save my money for the guys that I really want and try to build a committee. And no one really managed to do that job. And his keepers were quite good as well. I think Lamar Miller's going to have, a big year. Everybody seems to think that that's like the hot pick is to get Lamar Miller, and it's certainly possible. I don't love all the receivers that he picked up. There's some question marks around guys like, how good is Emmanuel Sanders going to do with Trevor Siemens throwing to him? You don't know. You don't know, but at the prices that he paid for these guys, they're guys that at least have some talent, some capability. He'll need to fill in some holes. I think the biggest risk for loss would be everybody just having an okay game and him losing to people that had some more explosive people on the rosters rather than him having massive holes in the roster that he needs to fill. If Gates goes down, he's pretty old. That is one potential weakness.
If quarterback was one of his holes, he could fill it with Siemens, right, Hillers?
He could fill it with Siemens. It's one of his favorite things to do.
It's no, I mean, Evan comes in, he's got guys he's targeting, he knows he's got a good idea of who keepers are. He's got values for those guys, and then if he sees a player going for a good value, he's not afraid to jump in on the bidding and try to win that guy. which is how he got Brees. I'm pretty sure he wasn't targeting Drew Brees, but when he saw him going for, $16, $17 and it's slowing down, he says, "Oh, I'll jump in there." And the McCoy thing, I'm sitting next to JD and I'm telling JD, I'm whispering to JD, he's got so much money at this point. I'm like, JD's bidding against him. I'm like, JD, you have to go to 40. You have to keep bidding this. Bid this up. I'm telling him, and he checked out. And now look who JD's got, one shiny Bilal Powell for $35 on his roster.
$4 less.
Right. Not that. And again, I think Bilal Powell's fine this year. I think he's going to be fine, but I think he's maybe a $15 player, not a $35 player. But anyway, solid draft by Evan. He's got a lot of guys on his bench that I'm okay. If he needs to sub them in, they're not great, but you can sub them in. Torrey Smith, number one receiver in a Chip Kelly offense. I've never been a Torrey Smith guy, but
right.
They have nobody other than him.
But at $6, it's $6.
It's $6. Willie Snead, the number 2 receiver on the Saints, very good year last year. Manuel Sanders, he might not be great, but for $11, why not?
How can you know?
And he's got a top 5 running back in Lamar Miller, I think, and he's got a top 5 wide receiver in Julio Jones, and he's got a top 5 quarterback in Drew Brees. So, that's the trifecta that you're looking for. So maybe some struggles at tight end, who knows? But that's tight end's one of the easier ones to replace if you need to. So, what grade did you give him, Hillers?
Oh, I don't know. One smug frat boy, I guess.
Okay. I don't know what that means. I'd give it. I'd give it.
It's like he's doing fine. He's just kind of coasting around, and at the whole time you're like, fail. just fail. Please.
I'd give it an A. So, all right. Next team is Assassins. Watson came in. He kept Ben Roethlisberger at 16, Doug Martin at 12, Todd Gurley at 40, Brandon Cooks at 22, and DeAndre Hopkins at 32. Did not have a lot of money to buy players, so he didn't buy a lot of players. His big buys were Melvin Gordon at 21, Gary Barnidge at 7, and Stephon Diggs at 10. Other than that, a lot of upside value guys. I'll go ahead and start with Watson here. I think Melvin Gordon was a good buy. I think he had good keepers coming in. He's got 2 of the best running backs keepers that we had. He had maybe 2 of the best wide receiver keepers we had, and Roethlisberger, who a lot of people think is around that mid-tier of QB1s who could be really good this year if he stays healthy. So the Melvin Gordon buy was great. No big mistakes from Watson this year, I don't feel like, which, there's always one where we're like, oh, there's the Watson move, but I feel like he didn't make that this year. So I'm going to give this draft, it's just solid. It's just a really solid draft. I'll give it. And he didn't have a lot to work with, so I'm going to give it an A-.
What do you think about the Josh Gordon thing?
For $6, I think it's great. Yeah,
some hard-hitting analysis there, guys.
I think whatever. He's out 4 games.
Someone was going to pay that.
Yeah, if he comes back and plays great, then that's a great value.
Oh yeah, but if you have Stephon Diggs and DeAndre Hopkins as your 1 and 2 until he comes back, and
exactly,
you're fine.
Yep.
Well, and Brandon Cooks certainly could,
and he's got Corey Coleman until then, who is going to be the starter.
Right.
Until Gordon comes back or get a lot more targets until he comes back. Hillers.
Well, yeah, I think you said what there was to say in that when you come in with so little, your draft is really going to be about the one player that you decide to spend money on. And Melvin Gordon, $21, it's fine. It's not one of those values where we say, oh, that's terrible, or this is really exceptional. It's still Melvin Gordon. There's
right.
Still a lot to be proven there. This isn't necessarily a game changer for this team, but it's an RB3 for him. And so I think he has tools to succeed here, but he is a couple injuries away from some problems, and his quarterback situation, while certainly competent, isn't. I think he's banking on Mariota
away from
coming. No, but some teams are more brittle than others, and this is one of them. If I was going to give this one a grade, it would be one glass cannon. Because, it's like, don't get near it, if it's firing correctly. But if it's not, this team is going to collapse in a hurry, and have some.
I think there are less deep teams out there, and we'll get to them. But I think he had about $60 to spend in the draft, if I'm calculating right. So, Nick, what do you think?
I'm going to just repeat. I have nothing new to add. I'll give him an A. Good job, Watson.
Just solid draft, yeah. All right. Duplex is our next team. Duplex came in. They kept Andrew Luck at 27, Latavius Murray at 11, Eddie Lacy at 38. Who was our toilet bowl champ, by the way?
Pritchard.
He was supposed to get $5 extra, wasn't he?
I think he did.
Did he? Okay.
Yeah.
My bad. Eddie Lacy at 38, Amari Cooper at 20, and Derek Carr.
He used it to draft the last half of his team.
Derek Carr at $6. His big pickups were Matt Jones at 27. He's got to have the Redskins running back. That's Dave's move.
He must!
Jordan Matthews at 15 and Sterling Shepard at 11. Nick, we'll start with you on this one. What do you think of Dave's team?
Why don't we start with Hillers? We haven't led with Hillers yet.
Okay.
Sure. I think his quarterback and running back situations are as impeccable as you'll find in a competitive league like this. He's very well set up there. It's relatively deep, and there's guys that have good chances to succeed at a high enough level week after week to put up enough points that it's going to be really tough to beat him unless you're having a truly exceptional week. Having said that, I do think his wide receiver situation could be better. When Alan Hearns is your number one guy, you're pretty far down the.
I think
Matthews, Amari Cooper.
He's got Cooper.
I mean,
Sterling Shepard is a 2B.
How they scored last year. I also think Amari Cooper's going to blow up, and I know he got tons of trade offers for Cooper at $20 for a receiver, which I think says a lot for how much people think of Amari Cooper. I'm saying, though, that there's not a lot of proven quantity in this wide receiver core, and it does have the potential to just not materialize.
It's the weakest spot on the team, for sure.
Right. And if it doesn't materialize as expected, this team isn't going to be as competitive as I think they probably will be.
Okay. Nick?
I'm going to just echo a lot of what Hiller said. This is a very Davey team. He's got both. He's got the 5 running backs. He has 2 handcuffs, and then the Redskins running back.
There's only a couple of Chargers.
I think his wide receivers is a good mix of the guys that are right there on the cusp of blowing up, but he also has some of the sleeper talent. Like I said, if you told, I know that my wide receivers are one to talk about, but if you told me that I could have Jordan Matthews and Amari Cooper as my 1 and 2, with Alan Hearns as 3 and Sterling Shepard as my number 3B, with Travis Benjamin as like another fill-in guy, like those are all guys that have such a high ceiling that I would take any of those guys in a heartbeat. Sure. So if Dave, you want to work out a trade,
it's not bad. I agree. Yeah.
Yeah. Like,
what are you going to give him?
I would like the way my team's structured is I would take any one of these guys to slide into my spot because like it's an upgrade enough for me. Yeah, there we go. It's an upgrade to me, but it's
that's how we get Lyme disease. Sorry,
Kanish.
No, laugh it up. I know.
All right, what grades did you give it? What grades would you guys give these?
A. I'm feeling lenient today. There's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with the draft.
Okay.
Yeah, B+. Nothing clever to say about it. It's just pretty solid.
He's locked up the Green Bay running back, and he's locked up the Oakland running back, and those are 2 offenses that we feel are going to be pretty good. So, nice job there. I'll agree with you, Nick, that his receivers, when you look at them in a vacuum, they're not terrible. But when you look at some of the other receiving cores in the league, and you match them up with those, they don't match up as well as you would like. So, and you'll see that as we go through, but it's not terrible. It's just if you're going to look at a weak spot, I think that's where he would look to improve. But it's not like you're
well, it's going to take a few weeks before he can make a move there, I think, because all these guys really do have high end potential, and you don't want to be the guy that dropped him in week 4 and then in week 10 he's the next big keeper for the next year.
If you want Tyler Boyd, Dave, if you want to swap out.
If you want the poor man's version of any of your guys, Nick hasn't waited for you.
Honestly, I don't think that he is. I think that. Go ahead. Anyway.
If there was a big mistake, maybe he overpaid a little for Matt Jones. But he's going to be the guy in Washington. But they're going to just chuck it all the time. They're going to be passing like crazy.
I don't know.
I know Nick doesn't like this, but he did leave 16 on the table, which isn't as bad as a lot of people, but. But maybe he could have gotten a couple extra bucks here and there because I know he wasn't on bidding on a lot of guys. So I give Dave's draft a B+. Again, I don't think there's anything he did wrong. There's just nothing that stands out to say, wow, that was an amazing pick. That was a great buy. So, all right, moving on to the drugs division. Peanut butter jelly time is where we'll start here. PBJ came in. They kept 2 players. They kept Alshon Jeffrey and Sammy Watkins, and that is a hell of a receiving core if Alshon Jeffrey's healthy and Sammy Watkins is healthy. But his big buys were Ezekiel Elliott for $54. Brett loves those hot rookie running backs. Also, he likes having them on his fantasy team. Danny Woodhead, $17. Marvin Jones at $16, and Michael Floyd at $22. Hillers, why don't we start with you? Who did we start with last time? Let's go with Hillers this time.
So risky. Such a risky draft. I mean, I think that the consensus among fantasy football analysts is that among the running backs that were available to draft this year in our league, Ezekiel Elliott would have the best year. Having said that, $54 is the most anyone has ever paid for a rookie, ever.
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah.
No value there. So you have to assume that he comes in and starts as a top 5 back in his first year, having never taken an NFL snap. And he really better hope that, because I don't think you can count on anybody else in his running back core. Charles Sims would be extremely lucky to even get close to what he had last year. He's hoping, he's banking on Doug Martin injuries there. Danny Woodhead, fairly reliable, but not exactly setting the world on fire. And right. Devonta Booker, who knows? Maybe he plays. Maybe
he plays.
Maybe he doesn't. Maybe he's a starter. Yeah. Maybe he gets cut halfway through the year. His wide receiver situation is obviously a lot stronger. But I just feel like so much of this team is banking on total unknowns.
Yeah. All right. Great.
So I get one game of Russian roulette.
Okay. Nick.
A winning game?
Time will tell.
Okay.
It's Russian roulette.
I see what you did there.
He'll find out soon enough.
I guess in 6 games. No.
Somebody had to pay that much for Ezekiel Elliott. It takes 2 people to bid up that much. So, I mean, that's Brett's move, is to go after that rookie guy that'll hopefully head off. Is he going to be a keeper at $57? Who knows? Does Brett have a team that can build around it and can make a run having spent $54? Probably not, but it's a player that you can trade for, that you can look at that someone who's getting ready to make a championship run and say, hey, I'll take Ezekiel Elliott from you, and I'll take, I'll give you whatever. I'll give you here's 2 keepers for Ezekiel Elliott, and that's how Brett becomes competitive back in this league again, is by having someone like Ezekiel Elliott, or actually any of his receivers too. I actually don't think any of his receivers are that bad, and saying, okay, I'll take 2 of I'll give me 2 of your potential keepers, and I will give you this guy, which will be such an upgrade over whatever else that you have to help give you make that championship push for you.
Yeah, but if you're saying Brett's path to success lies in being active in the trade market, then we can call it right now.
Oh, we just got to see Jill.
That's not going to happen.
Just talk to Jill and Peter and.
Yeah. All right. So grade? Did you give it a grade?
I still think I feel like it's still like a C+ grade, but I think that it's a C+, but it's a rebuilding C+. Like, if that means anything.
Okay. I think. All right, let's say Ezekiel does end up being a top 5 running back, okay? Then this is a good team. I mean, Carson Palmer, it could be a great quarterback. I mean, that team throws it a lot, right? He's 4 deep at receiver with Jeffrey, Watkins, Michael Floyd, and Marvin Jones. I think Marvin Jones will have a pretty good year on the Lions. Are you guys with me? Hillers, are you here?
I am.
I think we lost Hillers.
Did we really lose him?
Yeah. He's just staring blankly at the screen. It looks kind of funny.
This is headshot.
Yeah. So if Ezekiel Elliott does work out, then this team could be scary. I think it all banks on him. He kind of went with the strategy of last year. Like, running back 2 was the most overrated position in fantasy last year. Like, nobody needed to. Like, running back was such a disaster last year. If you just had one running back you could play, then you were in good shape. And that's kind of where he is right now. So, he's got Jimmy Graham as an upside tight end. If he doesn't work out, he's got Dwayne Allen down there, the Colts tight end. So
okay, so I hear what you're saying, but what you're looking at his team right now, you're starting Devontae Booker, Charles Sims, or Danny Woodhead in your flex.
No, you're not.
Yeah, you are, because you're starting 3 receivers.
Oh yeah, Danny Woodhead. I got no problem starting Danny Woodhead in the flex.
Okay.
Yeah, that's no problem at all. So I mean, he's RB2, but he's basically your flex, right? I mean, that's kind of what he is.
That's how. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but no. So I'm with you. I give it a C, because because it's just the risk of Ezekiel Elliott. I mean, he put so much of his money into hit that player, and it's an unknown, and so I'd give it that.
Right. So I guess the next team we have here is Touchdown Jesus.
That's right.
And Pritchard comes in with, let's go ahead and pull that up here real quick.
His keepers were Cam Newton at 25, C.J. Anderson at 32, DeMarco Murray at 23, Des Bryant at 26, Kelvin Benjamin at 6.
Right.
Pritchard had about $70 to spend in the draft. His big pickups were Carlos Hyde at 45, Derrick Henry at 25, and a bunch of people $3 or less.
That's what he does. So before we start getting into this analysis, what do you think? How do you feel about Dez now? What are your thoughts on Dez now?
I think he's fine.
Okay.
I mean, he moves down a little bit, but from what we've seen in the preseason, Dak Prescott seems to be. Hey, we got Hillers back. Dak Prescott seems to be force feeding Dez the ball, which if he's doing that, he's doing it right. So I think he'll be okay.
Okay.
We're talking about TDJ. Hillers.
Carlos Hyde for $45 is really interesting. Kind of makes me think that I could have probably pushed harder to trade him to someone. I don't know. Would you just go ahead and go? What are your thoughts?
Yeah. So when you come in with that many keepers, you've got a lot invested in your keepers. I think if it were me, and it's not me, but this is Pritchard's strategy every time he goes stars and scrubs, he picks out 2 or 3 guys he wants and just goes all in on them, no matter what they cost. But if it were me, we would.
Hey, there you are.
Hey, we can hear you. Could you hear us?
Yeah.
All right. If it were me, I would spread out the rest of the money, try to get a little more depth because, I'm coming in with these 5 keepers. I don't have a lot of money, so I'm going to try to get guys I can plug in. Well, Pritchard decided he just wants 2 players, and just screw it. He's going to deal with the rest of it. So he overpaid.
Carlos Hyde is who he wanted to go after?
Yeah, apparently. So he paid a lot for Carlos Hyde. Chip Kelly offense. I don't know. Maybe he feels like he's going to stay healthy. And Derrick Henry at 25, I don't hate. It's not, it's not great, but I don't hate it. I'd give this draft a D+ just because I think it's too. You talk about thin. You talk about glass cannon. That's what this team is, Hillers. Nick.
I'm reading that a little differently, I guess.
What grade would you give it, Nick?
I guess looking at I think a D is about right. I mean, his keepers were fine, but aside from that, I mean, he has C.J. Anderson. Who knows what's going to happen? There's just so many question marks here with everything. What C.J. Anderson's going to show up this year? What's DeMarco Murray's role going to be in Tennessee, even with Derrick Henry there now?
But he's got Derrick Henry too.
That's what I'm saying. Is that are you going to start them both though? You have a handcuff. I mean, you have Dez and you have Kelvin Benjamin, who. I mean, Dez should be fine, and Benjamin, by all reports, is going to be fine. But then, what do you have after that? There's just nothing. I like the pick of D. I think $45 on Carlos Hyde. That's the guy that you went all in on. You talk about the money that was left on the table or whatever, but but McCoy was at $39. So
you'd rather have that.
I would rather have McCoy for $39 than Hyde for $45.
Yep. I agree. So great.
I'm at D+.
All right. Hillers.
I read it a little bit differently. I think this draft was fine. It wasn't too inspiring. I give it 1. Peppy insurance salesman. It's not exciting. It just gets the job done. But there's nothing wrong with his running back core. I mean, basically, you guys are dinging him for having a committee, but most everybody has a committee, and at least Tennessee likes to run, and he's one of few teams that at least knows that he's going to be covered if they decide to go one way or another there. I mean, there's a good chance that one of those 2 guys would be a premier 3-down back. Aside from Ezekiel Elliott, Derrick Henry had some of the most hype, coming into the season as a guy who, they liked what they saw, and he, Tennessee runs all the time, and it was working just fine. And, C.J. Anderson, okay, you don't know what's going to happen to him, but right now he's a starting running back on a Super Bowl team. Carlos Hyde, when he played perfectly well, and given the depth
when he played,
given the depth that was available to draft, and the prices that were going when he got nominated, I understand why he went for that much money. When I look at what the starting lineup for this team is, when starting lineup, okay, let's just in theory, Cam Newton, let's say DeMarco Murray, and Henry hasn't really come back in yet. Hyde and Anderson. Bryant and say Beckham, or maybe if things go a lot better than we expect in Los Angeles, maybe even
Kelvin Benjamin, dude. It's Kelvin.
Yeah, okay, but that's not bad. It's
That's
Didn't
not the
really pay
issue.
attention.
The issue is what's left.
No.
That's
Well,
the
and what's
issue.
left if you're looking at TE and defense and stuff like that is he gave up obviously, and he had a ton of $1 players, which is a situation you
Yeah,
don't
but you
want
were
to be in a
somebody-
situation where you're having to bid $1 on
Right.
six guys.
You're somebody who a couple of teams ago, and we need to move on, so we'll grade this real quick. But you're
Sure.
somebody who a couple of teams ago said, "Well, if this person has a couple injuries, they're in trouble." I mean, look at this team. I mean, he's got nothing but $3 to $1 players on his bench.
Well, if Murray gets hurt, then he's set. You know,
right.
If,
The one thing he did, he picked up the handcuff to both his running backs. He's got Sean Jerome to back up Carlos Hyde, and he's got Derrick Henry to back up Murray. So
and
that
if
was smart.
receivers get hurt, he'll do what everybody does and go get some more. They're all over the place.
And he's got a lot of upside on those $1 guys. I will say that. I like his $2 and $1 guys, but I don't want to start those guys.
That's why they're $1.
Exactly. So Hillers, what grade would you give it?
I already gave it the insurance salesman.
Okay. Next team is Black Widows.
Happy insurance salesman.
Black Widows came in keeping Jonathan Stewart at $9, Mark Ingram at $44, Odell Beckham at $16, Brandon Marshall at $25. Big draft pickups were Tony Romo at $3, Randall Cobb at $23, Gio Bernard $19, Kevin White $14, Duke Johnson $16, Isaiah Crowell $16. We'll start with you on this one, Hillers. Grade my draft.
As usual, I guess I'd have to give it one horny Camp Crystal Lake couple because you're going to have a lot of fun for a little bit of time, and then it's all going to go south just drastically in a big hurry and in a very gory fashion. And you know that's the case. I mean, I can't say that, you know, I like this team as well as I liked your team last year, you know, and you know, it's just you're hoping to have a lot, you know, and I know you got Romo, and like as you said his name, he just was like, oh
No,
remember I give up the ghosts.
Yeah.
There goes my spine,
Right.
you know, and I remember, you know,
I traded for Stafford though.
a year ago, you know, it's like Mark Ingram and Jonathan Stewart aren't the guys you want, but now they're on your team for more money and pretty much the anchor to your roster. I think where you shine is wide receiver. Is that you can afford to trade a wide receiver. It's just that for what? You know, their value isn't particularly amazing in the league right now for a number 2 guy. Like
I don't care.
Odell
I'll
Beckham,
take receiver.
Yeah, you're right. Odell Beckham at $16. That's not amazing value. You're right.
It is, but are you going to trade him? You'd be stupid to trade him. You know, he's too good to trade. You know, so you'd be looking to trade guys like Kenny Stills or Kevin White. You know, and they might pan out and be worth it, but it'll be a tougher road. So you're in a.
I don't have Kenny Stills.
Did you trade him?
Says Kenny Stills on your roster.
Oh, I picked him up. That wasn't a draft. Sorry, I do have Kenny Stills.
Okay, the fact that you don't know who you have on your team is a concern. But
He's not playing.
So you're in a fine position now, but given what I know of your teams and how they work, I think by week 10, we're all just going to be shaking our heads and going, "Oh, I can't believe it happened again."
So grade my draft.
I did.
Oh yeah, Crystal.
Pay attention. Listen to the pot. Rule
All right.
1.
Nick,
Jeez.
you're supposed to end with the grade.
You asked me what the grade was in the beginning.
All right.
Whatever. I mean, you've gotten a lot better with your draft over the years. You've streamlined your strategy a lot, and you've been able to build up a solid team to build around now. So now that you have 5 solid keepers that you can start with, and well,
4, but yeah.
4, you know, 4. But I mean, you have 4 solid keepers. Like, I mean, you came in with enough money and a strategy and sober enough to be able to manage the draft. So those are very important keys when it comes to our league, and you did a good job with it. So, hey.
The biggest key to your success this year is going to be your cake division.
Okay. Yeah, so coming into the draft, I had some targets, but my strategy was to not spend a ton on any one player, but kind of spread out the money a little bit, like not spend more than really 30 on anybody if I could. And I feel like I got that. I think Cobb was my first pick at 23, which I loved. And then I went deep at running back. I went 5 running backs deep. I mean, with Stewart, Ingram, Duke Johnson, Crowell, and Gio Bernard. So those are 5 guys who I'm okay starting any of them, honestly. And then I figured because they're all going to get hurt, so I need 5 of them just in case. So And then I figured I'd go cheap. When I traded for Ingram, my thought was I'm going cheap at quarterback and tight end, and that's what I ended up doing. So I had to let Olsen go. Did you guys think I should have kept Olsen to 16?
Nah. 16's a lot of money this year.
Yeah, he went for 20, but I felt like 16 was still a lot. So considering my keepers. So anyway,
I think it would have been fine just because you're still getting a solid tight end. Like you still know what you're getting with Olsen. In hindsight, hindsight, $16 would have been fine.
So I'd give it a B just because there were no great, amazing picks where you said wow, but yeah, B, I think solid. So next team, the Choops. JD came in keeping Devontae Freeman at 11, Allen Robinson at 23, Jarvis Landry at 10. Pretty good values there. His big picks were he got Bortles at 5, Matt Forte at 35, Demaryius Thomas 23, Deshaun Jackson at 20, and Bilal Powell at 35. So Nick, run through JD's draft for us.
I feel like every year someone has that team that was good 2 years ago. This team is it.
Yeah, that's true.
If you told me that I could have Phillip Rivers, Bilal Powell, Matt Forte,
Vincent Jackson,
Deshaun Jackson, Vincent Jackson, Demaryius Thomas, Martellus
Julius Thomas, my team, you just couldn't buy that team. You couldn't get that team at auction. No. Championship.
So I think that JD's did a lot better job this year than he has in years past. I think that he's at least put together a team that will be more competitive. Whether or not it'll be a solid team or not, that remains to be seen. I think that he had I feel like it was the alcohol talking, but I did say that he had best draft, and that had a lot to do with just because of the improvement in his team. I still think it's a pretty. Actually, I don't know why I voted for this.
I don't either.
I don't know.
It was fine.
I think again, my mindset was probably thinking 2 years ago, oh, Matt Forte, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So grade
C+.
Okay, Hillers.
You want the grade, or do you want me to talk about the team? You got upset, but I
talk about the team. I'll give the grade.
Okay.
How many years have we been doing this?
I don't know.
I honestly don't know.
Oh.
When I look at each position on this team, I don't see anything wrong. I just don't see anything that makes me think this team's going to be a winner either. It's like the receivers are good, but there's a lot of pretty scary receiving cores in the league this year. It's like I think if Devonta Freeman has the same year he has last year, there's going to be a lot of competitive games that this team is in, and they'll win several. But
if Devontae Freeman has 3 or 4 good games, which inflate his value, and then does nothing for the rest of the year.
It was more than 3 or 4.
It was about half a season.
The guy had but it was a half a season. It was 5 touchdowns a game.
Yeah, it was great.
I mean, and so, but I don't expect that. I don't think that
4 games
that is a repeatable season, even for somebody with more of a track record than that. And while I really like each of his receivers individually, I really like all of them as number 2s. It's like I except maybe Allen Robinson, who I think didn't get as much credit as he deserves.
Oh, I think he does.
Yeah.
So you like his number 2 receivers?
Well, they're all number 2 receivers.
But he's got all number 1, so why does it matter if that's great if they're all number 2s?
Right. I'm just saying it's not enough. I think to save his team from the breakdowns.
JD, I'll take any of your number 2 receivers.
Okay.
I
What's
think
your
we've
grade?
established that you're receiver thirsty.
Nick misses the days of yesteryear when he had the best receivers.
Remember I had Wes Welker, Brandon Marshall, Randall Cobb, AJ Green.
I'll give it 1 used Honda Civic. It seems reliable and sturdy, but it's not going to turn any hits.
Yeah, I mean, you look at this team, and
this team needs Frank Gore. That's what it needs.
You look at it, it's not scary. You're not scared of anything on this team, right? I mean, yeah, Devontae Freeman was great last year, but like Nick said, it was a run, but it really died in the second half, and people are saying that a lot of people think it might not happen again this year. Allen Robinson was quietly great. He's invested a lot in the Jaguars. Blake Bortles, Allen Robinson, Julius Thomas. I mean,
Bortles Star Galactica. Rename the team.
Who's really ever gone wrong investing in the Jaguars?
I have.
I have. I mean, if the Jaguars work out and Devontae Freeman works out, this team would be great. I feel like he overpaid for his Jets. He's got $70 in Jets running backs.
Hey, Hillers.
It seems like a lot.
Say it like that.
Just for some quick math, he has 3 Jaguars on their team. They still don't add up to what you paid for what's his name?
I don't know. And I think that's the point.
Toby Gerhart.
Right.
It's true, yeah. So,
Ouch.
I don't know. He got in a point where he had to spend on a running back late, and it wasn't great. But he's got the Jackson brothers down there on his bench. You know, he's pretty deep. It's not a terrible team. I'm going to give it a C.
He's got a chance to win any week. He'll put up 90 points many weeks, I'm sure.
Yeah, he's going to be a solid team. If he gets some good schedule luck, he'll be good. Rock and roll division. Last 4 teams here. Dad Dicks are our first team. They came in. They kept David Johnson at 4 and Le'Veon Bell at 25. That is terrifying. Eric Decker at 21 and Jeremy Maclin at 10, who he traded for the day before the draft. His big purchases were Eli Manning at 9, Frank Gore at 23, Greg Olson at 20, and LeGarrette Blount at 25. And it might have been the best part of the draft when he drafted D'Angelo Williams at 11, and he said, "I don't like it. What am I going to do?" He said, "My running back likes the weed." Might have been the best moment of the entire draft, but that's when he got D'Angelo Williams and paid $11 for the handcuff. But hey, man, that's 4 weeks of a starting running back, or 3 weeks, I guess, of a starting running back. So, Hellers, we'll start with you on this one. Give me the lowdown. Give me the scoop.
I really don't like
the heebie-jeebie.
I really don't like these receivers at all. Having said that, I really love the running back situation on this team.
Yeah.
It's incredible. I think any given week too, his quarterbacks can let him down. Like he's got so many good running backs, and then to look at his wide receivers, like if he could just make them a little bit better, it's like this would be such a terrifying team.
Yeah.
You know, and they're not. I mean, they are. Like they're going to beat my team. Let's be honest. But I mean, it's just. But. You wish he'd looked for a little bit more completeness in his strategy here, and I can see what he was going for with the wide receivers. But you know, if you've got a little bit of money, are you really going to say, okay, I'm going to be the guy that takes Will Fuller and Tajay Sharp, you know, and hopes Maclin does well in Kansas City, and has a jet just on principle? I mean, it's just. There's a lot lacking there, and I think it's going to let him down at key moments. Having said that, everywhere else he seems perfectly fine. So I think this team is going to be a tough one to beat.
Okay. Grade?
Oh, one yacht with a hole in it.
Okay. The hole being the wide receiving corps?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Nick?
A for draft day comical reliefness.
Okay.
Yeah, Hillary was brought up a lot. I guess you guys have already hit on a lot of the points that I guess is wide receivers. Like, I mean, I'm one to talk, but having like Eric Decker and Jerry Maclin, like Steve Smith, I think is kind of like, I know he got hurt last year, but what can you really expect from that? For $3, what are you really gambling on? I don't know. A C. Sorry, I have nothing to say, really.
Okay. What grade? Oh, you said C?
I said a C. Like, there's just nothing.
Spent $38 on his entire wide receiver core.
I mean, I imagine, like, take the average. I'm sure that's not that far off the average when you look at it across the league.
So we're shitting on Eric Decker and Jeremy Maclin. Decker was
I'm not shitting on them. I'm shitting on Eric Decker. I'm shitting on Eric. I'm just saying Decker and Maclin aren't that.
They're not scary when you look at them.
They're not scary when you look at them, and they're not. I think that Maclin and Decker are fine if you have them on the roster, but he's relying on them as like his number one, and I think that's where the problem is.
Decker was the number 10 receiver in the league last year. Maclin was the number 17 receiver in the league last year. So they're underrated. I mean, if you think the Jets are going to regress a little in their offense, and I could see that. I mean, I understand that. And again, if you look at these compared to other receiving corps, they don't have that scary number one that you're just terrified of, right?
Well, I don't particularly believe any of these sleepers have a chance of being like a top top guy sleeper. You know what I mean? Because Houston, with Houston, who's the quarterback there? Are they really going to be like
Brock
a passing
Osweiler.
team? Osweiler, right? And it's like with Tennessee, it's like when do they even pass? It's possible, but the situations are not.
Sure, but that's waiver wire work midseason. I mean, it's not a deep team. I'll give you that.
And he has Olsen.
But yeah, he's going to win.
Olsen's a nice ad. Gostowski,
He's got an
Cardinals
advantage
defense.
every week at the tight end matchup, just about every week anyway.
Right.
He's got the best running back core in the league, bar none, no doubt about that. And his receivers are solid.
And he's got 2 top 10 quarterbacks.
You look at his draft, he knew he had to get D'Angelo Williams. I'm sure he was willing to go real high. One thing I will say is, I harp on this, but he left $35 on the table. That's one Bilal Powell he could have got. But obviously that's not it. But that's, a few extra bucks here and there he could have gone to get players that he probably dropped out on. So, overall solid team. Frank Gore 23. That's like exactly where Frank Gore should be. I mean, that's like the Frank Gore number. And Eli Manning has been really good since the new coaches come in. So, I think it's going to be a good team. The running back core is terrifying, especially come week 4. And I'm going to give this draft a C+ because I think it's above average, but nothing crazy spectacular where you said, wow, that's a great buy. So, good job, Grimes. Next team, End Zone Bombardment Squad, our missing co-host. Anthony came in. Could not trade Kamar Aiken, no matter how hard he tried.
He did try.
Kumar. What is that, like 3 O's and 2 U's?
No. Chris Ivory. He kept Chris Ivory at $9, Antonio Brown at $22, Doug Baldwin at $7, and Delaney Walker at $13. His big buys were Jameis Winston at $11, Jeremy Hill at $35, Julian Edelman at $24, Amir Abdullah at $20. Hillers, we'll start with you on Anthony's draft here. What do you think now that he is not here to defend himself?
I think that if the guys with question marks that he invested in pan out positively, that this is going to be a very scary team.
Like who?
Jameis Winston. There's a lot of talk. Is he going to be the next elite-ish quarterback? Is Jeremy Hill going to be able to take and hold a primary role in what right now is a backfield situation that's kind of a mess? If Javoris Allen becomes the starting number 1 guy in Baltimore, if Amir Abdullah can, be the post-hype sleeper that some people thought he might be able to be, it's like there's good reason to believe that any one of these guys could pan out quite well. I mean, he doesn't need them all to be amazing. He just needs 1 or 2. Having said that, they do all have big question marks on them, right? So his wide receiver core, it's a little stars and scrubs, but really nothing all that wrong with that at all. And I can see where he was going with the Javoris Allen thing, also having Kenneth Dixon who got hurt. He's thinking somebody in Baltimore will be Ray Rice in the future. I'm starting, next up, not the beatings.
Well, and everybody went nuts when Forsett got cut, too.
Right, and he's back on the team, including me, who spent $18.
Now he's back on the team in 36 hours.
Yeah, but here's the problem: is that between me and Anthony, we have 4 running backs, any one of which can be the starting running back for Baltimore.
That's right.
Neither one of us have it locked up.
I'd rather have the 2 you have, though.
It's a mess, and so.
But these aren't people he's depending on, so.
Well, you better hope not. But I mean, who is he depending? Who's his number 1 running back here? There's not a whole lot of certainty you can put it in. Yeah, and that's not great right now.
Maybe
it's he has potential, but he also has demonstrated that maybe he might get hurt, and it's Jacksonville where teams go to die.
Okay, what's your grade?
1 mystery box.
Okay,
it could even be a boat.
Go ahead, Merrill. You go start.
So Anthony's draft, I don't know. It's very Anthony. I feel like Anthony gets caught up in bidding on Bengals running backs a lot for some reason. Didn't he buy Cedric Benson when he was on the Bengals for a ton one time?
He did.
And then Giovanni Bernard for a ton one time when he was on and now he pays $35 for Jeremy Hill. What is it about Bengals running backs where Anthony just gets so tore?
I didn't believe in those guys. You
so into these guys. Anyway, 30. It's not crazy, but it's a little high for Jeremy Hill. I feel like.
It's not crazy.
He came in. His receiving core is good.
Oh, but hey, how much money do you leave on the table?
He left 36 on the table, exactly. So that's not not ideal, and I'm sure he's not happy about that. I like the Winston buy. Winston was the guy I was targeting, and Baldwin people think is going to regress a lot, but at $7, who cares if he regresses a lot? I mean,
Right.
He'll still be great. So yeah, the team's not deep, but his running back core is an issue. He probably could have gone a little harder for like a McCoy or an Ezekiel Elliott or some of the other top running backs that were out there, but he chose not to, and that's so maybe that's why that money was left on the table. But so I'll give this draft a C. I think it was average, no huge mistakes. Actually, a C. I'll give it a D plus because of the money left on the table. And I'm dropping Dad Dix a full letter grade too, whatever I gave him. Dropping it. So,
God damn it, Merrill. But you just don't get it. I'm trying to do what Anthony's doing right now. I'm going to go get a vacuum.
All right. give us your Anthony impression, Nick. You be Anthony and defend your draft.
You just don't get it. That's just not how you. I can see how he's saying it, but I can't really envision what he'd actually be saying.
That's more like how he would do it if he had Lyme disease.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to walk in with Jeremy Hill and Chris Ivory as my number 1 and 2 running back, or Amir Abdullah as my running back, just because I feel like you don't actually have anything proven. You don't have any that clear cut the guy. I mean, Amir know that the Jim Bob Cooter offense, it helps out Matt Stafford a lot, but we'll see if what the Jim Bob effect has on Abdullah. I guess
the Cooter effect.
The Cooter effect, if you will. Yeah. His wide receivers are fine. I mean, you can't. Antonio Brown is arguably one of the best. If you were doing a snake draft, like the number 1 overall pick overall. So I mean, you can't really go wrong with that, especially when you have him for only $22. Again, I mean, Rashard Matthews, Mohamed Sanu.
I like the
treadmill are like the trendy sleeper picks.
Yeah,
like these guys that have a lot of upside. Cameron Brady went for $1 in this league. Delaney Walker, I like at 13. I feel like for a keeper, I mean, you don't know how the market's going to dictate that, so that was fine. I just wouldn't want to walk in with Jeremy Hill and Chris Ivory because I feel like you just don't know what's going to happen with them. It could be the Giovanni Bernard show one week, and it could be the TJ Yeldon show one week. Like, right. You just don't know what their roles are going to be. So
somebody vultures a touchdown and you end up with 40 yards.
So what could he have done in the draft to fix that?
Anything, it's like you said right after the draft. If we were to redo the draft right now, and it would not play it. It
wouldn't look anything like it.
So
it'd be totally different.
So you think he should have maybe gone for McCoy, like gone for Elliott, gone for
Elliott, gone for Cobb. I mean, again, gone
deeper at running back, even maybe thrown Arian Foster on his running back core, or something like that.
Yeah. I mean, again, it's
gone for Gore.
Yeah. I mean, I would say you only have four running backs, but you probably I guess you drafted Kenneth Dixon, who, I mean, yeah, there's just nothing.
Yeah. Okay. Great.
I got you back, Anthony. I'll actually raise you a letter grade because of you have money on the table and didn't know how the market was going to go. So I'm going to say a C+.
So you think it's a good thing to leave money on the table? He better manage his money so that he got deals and now he's got money left.
That's right.
Okay.
Hillers. I've raised his whole letter grade and it's still only a C+.
Our next team, Hillers Shit Show. He came in. He kept Aaron Rodgers at 31, Golden Tate at 4, who he traded for. Larry Fitzgerald at 12, and Jordan Reed at 5. Pretty good values there. The Rodgers value not as much as it used to be.
No.
But his big draft picks were Arian Foster at 23, Justin Forsett at 11, T.Y. Hilton at 24, Tom Brady at 10, Tyrod Taylor at 12, Brett Favre at 9, Dan Marino at 6.
I wish, man. Those are guys I can move.
Jay Ajayi at 12, Dion Lewis at 12, and Devontae Parker at 11. Hillers, give us a scoop, man. What was your plan coming in, and how do you think it went?
I had no faith that my keepers were competitive, especially given my division and the quality of ownership and the quality of keepers there. I had a plan to go in and collect pieces that I thought would be tradable to upgrade my value over the season, or to invest in guys that I thought had a potential to be value at their position, something strong that I could work with. Maybe it pans out, you know, and mid-season I'm looking at a different set of trades. Or maybe I sit on some guys and cash in on the trade deadline and try to make myself really closer to being a superpower next season than being just limping in like I was this year. I give myself one smushed hope because it's like I didn't go in here thinking I'm going to get a title if I just do a few things right. Like given the amount of running backs that were kept and the quality of what was left and the costs of it, I didn't have faith that I'd be able to get the kind of roster that I wanted, and I really do. I had instant regret about some of the guys, like, you know, even guys like Matt Jones, just guys that I didn't go for. That given how much I spent, 20 some on the table, you know, I had hindsight, but like I said, it was a weird draft. The pacing was odd, and you know, the drop off was precipitous. So I do think I'm going to be able to move one of these quarterbacks for something that I can use. And, you know, if a couple of things pan out my way, I might even be a team that's tough to beat from week to week.
Okay. Nick?
I think had I had a little bit more time to do some prep work on this, I would like to see what the stats are where if Miami's backfield were one player, how many points did they score in general when they had Lamar Miller last year? And as a whole, how many points did Baltimore's running back, if they were one player, score on the season?
Baltimore would be better.
Baltimore would be good or bad?
Better than Miami, I would think.
Yeah, because my thought is that while, like, you have Arian Foster and Jay Ajayi in Miami, they had Lamar Miller and they still couldn't run the ball last year.
That's a good point.
Right.
I think that Baltimore didn't do that well either with Justin Forsett and, like, their 3 or 4 players that they were running with. So I don't know actually if there is 2 committees that I'd want to throw my money into that I would want. Those are the teams that I would say this is the running back that I want. But again, I'm just kind of going off on a tangent.
Totally fair.
No, that's a good point.
I mean, Larry Fitzgerald was fine. I think that there's a lot of these players that you look at their point totals and think, man, this guy did so great last year. But you actually have to look at like the trend. Like Larry Fitzgerald's points, like he was fine for a lot of the season, but he really tailed it off at the end, but like halfway through the season. Like he started off really strong, but then from week 12 on, it was 6, 5, 4, 4, 8, 11. I mean, for the playoff run, it was 6, 5, 4, 4. Like that would be, if I had him on my team, I'd be like, you know what? I want nothing to do with this guy because there is something wrong with him just in the time where teams are making their NFL playoff push. They can't get him the ball anymore. Like John Brown's numbers are going up. Michael Floyd's numbers are going up. And Larry Fitzgerald
tells me if I offered it to you right now, you'd want
but for $12.
I know. Yeah, you're right.
$12.
You're right. I'm just looking at the team in general. I mean, you have your boy Golden Tate, who the minute Merrill said I'm putting up Golden Tate, I was like, that's a Hilliers move, isn't it?
Well,
he's like, no. And then 30 seconds later, hey, can you approve my trade?
No. I wasn't keeping anyone at that price. Yeah.
Yeah, no. I mean, Hilliers, you and I are in the same boat, so D.
Yeah.
Would you undo that trade right now if you could?
No.
Okay.
Because I don't think Mark Ingram would have changed my season around and made this a drastically different team.
Okay. So the interesting thing to me is you came in with a $31 keeper quarterback, and the way you chose to approach your draft was drafting 22 more dollars in quarterbacks. Like I don't understand. Like that one puzzled me.
Well, do you get it now? I mean, I really think someone's going to want a $10 Tom Brady halfway through the season.
Maybe. Yeah, quarterbacks are hard to trade, man. People don't want to give up their running backs, but they don't. I mean,
just make it in increments. I'm not going to be able to get a top tier running back for him, but maybe I can get a good wide receiver.
But my issue with that is, and I talked about this after the draft, is that money, that $10 you spent at the draft, that $22 you spent on your backup quarterbacks. What could that have bought you in running back depth? You know, what could that have bought you in more wide receivers?
What could the 26 I left on the table have bought?
You know, combine that with the 26, and you're looking at I think that's
Ezekiel Elliott.
I think that's $78 if I did my math right, and that could buy you anybody.
Right.
But you know, that's my big issue. Your running back core is not great, I know, and we keep saying like, oh, you should have gone more from McCoy or Elliott.
Sure.
Or it's like, but only so many people can have those guys. You know, we keep saying that about every team, and it's like, eventually somebody's going to have them, and then you've got to pick up the best guy. I don't mind Arian Foster 23. Arian Foster, when healthy, is a RB1. I mean, he is great. Will Miami use him? Nick, you made a great point. I don't know. I mean, will Miami figure out how to run the ball? I'm not sure they will, but you got to hope they do, Hillers. Your wide receiving core, it's solid. They're both they're wide receiver twos. Don't really have wide receiver one. I don't feel like you have a running back one. Maybe I guess I just said you did with Arian Foster. But
come on.
But if he gets hurt, then you're hurt.
No, it's when healthy and in the right system.
Right.
Arian Foster is a number one running back right
Am
now.
I comfortable with Arian Foster as my RB1?
No.
But I think Arian Foster can be an RB1 when healthy, is what I'll say.
Right.
So
No, I mean,
anyway.
I don't think I'll get a division, but I'll piss off a few people trying to make the playoffs this year.
I loved your Zach Miller at $1 buy. I love that a lot. Which is weird because you've already got Jordan Reed at 5, so I'm not sure when Zach Miller's going to play. Maybe in a flex spot you could put him in or something. But I love that.
Trade piece.
I'm going to give your draft I hate it, man. I'm going to give it a D-.
Okay.
Money left on the table, and you spent so much on quarterbacks. Like, just didn't get it at all. So
Not the year to do that. People do not care. Halfway through the year, I'm hoping people come to their senses on quarterbacks.
Right, but I think people are going to get to the point where they're going to say, oh, do I want to trade one of my running backs for this quarterback? Or do I want to go pick up Joe Flacco off waivers? And it's like, and not have to give up a running back for him.
Yeah.
Like, I'd rather just pick up Joe Flacco. I mean, so that's the issue you're going to run into. So anyway, let's move on. The last team here, Weenye is our last team. Weenye came in with a ridiculous set of keepers, and they could have had more, but they just had too many keepers. It was insane. They were trying to decide which elite keepers they wanted. Andy was. So Russell Wilson at 19, Jamal Charles at 30, Mike Evans at 7, Jordy Nelson at 25, and Gronk at 25. Excuse me. Wow. That's great radio right there. His big buys were Rashad Jennings at 28, which was late. John Brown at 10. Keenan Allen at 27. Those are really his big 3 buys there. He did have a lot of money spent in keepers. We will start with Nick on this one. Nick, what do you think of Andy's draft?
I can't believe Jason Witten actually got drafted.
$2.
Fine. He's fine.
That's a
Whatever.
backup to Gronk.
I mean, all in all, I think. Spoiler alert for the power ranking section. I think this is the best team in the league. I think that it's deep up and down. I think it has lots of good pieces on it. And
So let me ask you
he did
this.
a great draft.
Who's his running back 1?
Jamal Charles or
Who's
Spencer
Not
Ware.
playing week 1.
Spencer Ware.
Okay. Spencer Ware as your RB1. You think that's the best team in the league?
I think for week 1, then you have Duke Johnson and Rashad Jennings to help fill in those gaps with Michael Crabtree, Mike Evans, Jordy Nelson, John Brown to fill out the wide receiver spots, and Rob Gronk and Gronk. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Proceed. Sorry.
I mean, honestly, at this point, I'm trying to, in the interest of speeding it along,
Okay.
a draft. There's nothing that I didn't like about this draft. There's nothing that I don't like about this team. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, he turned Stafford around for Duke Johnson to deepen his running back core a little bit too. Hillers.
Yeah, there's nothing that terrifying about this team. Every position that it has, with the exception of the Rams defense at $10, was.
Oh, but hey, he didn't leave money on the table, Hillers.
He didn't. He spent that $10. It's extremely deep. There's a ton of potential for it to be even more scary than it looks right now. And potential, I think, especially in the wide receiver core. There's not anybody on my roster that I could trade for anybody that would be starting on his roster, even in a package deal. He's really got it locked.
Oh no, you're right. Yeah.
He's really got it locked up, and I would agree with Nick that this is preseason a premier team in the league, just like we said last season, though, of course. So.
For the record, we all picked Andy to win it all last year in the Week 1 podcast. So that was our prediction.
You failed us, Robinson. You failed us all.
Draft, nothing too spectacular. I like the Stafford buy at 4. He's now on my team, of course, so you know that. Locking up Stefan Ware? What is it? Spencer Ware. Spencer Ware, that's his name.
Stefan Ware.
I couldn't think of it.
That's a clothing line.
Swear.
It's a swanky clothing line.
Lock it up, Spencer Ware. It turned out to be really good. Keenan Allen was one of my targets coming in. He's actually going to be in the flex spot over John Brown, probably, I would think. And the Rashad Jennings buy is a little expensive, but at that point in the draft, he had to do it. I mean, it was the last guy left that had any kind of starting role. The running back core is not deep, so that's an issue. But whose running back core is deep? Like who's got a ton of running backs? So
Danny.
I like Crabtree at 6. That's a good buy.
Danny Grimes house. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll give the draft I'll give it a B+. I think it was really good.
All right.
So, all right. Good job, Wiener. Let's move on to our power rankings, boys. Let's move this thing along. We won't do predictions this time. We'll do predictions after week 1. So we'll just close it out with the power rankings here. We'll start with Nick. If you could take us from 12 to 7, that'd be great. We'd appreciate that. That'd be spectacular.
Yeah, that's not going to happen.
Okay, Hillers. If you could take us from 12 to 7, that'd be great.
Okay.
I'll tell you what. Here we go. 12 Hillers, and then I have nothing between 11 and 7.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you for your valuable input. I value it greatly. Hillers.
Well,
I have the best input. My input is the best.
To be fair, you had about 30 seconds to prepare for this. So.
Yeah, I hate to agree with such a shoddy analysis, but I also had myself at the bottom. Not a team built to win. I have the Choops at 11 just on principle for so many Jaguars. Assassins at 10. PBJ at 9. Iron Pirates at 8. And Touchdown Jesus at 7.
Okay. I have. So what I did is I did one power rankings just from eyesight, and then I did another one from. I ranked each team's position, and I did QB, running back, wide receiver, TE, and then I added their depth also as a category. And I kind of weighted each category based on what I think was important. Running back, wide receiver being most important, QB and tight end next, and I think depth is behind that one.
No defense and kicker? This is why you lose.
Yeah, that's exactly why I lose. That's why I have top 3 defenses every year. So we'll start with this. And it was funny. I got totally different results based on what I thought I would get and what I ended up getting. So number 12, I have Brett. At number 11, I've got the Duplex.
Wait, which list are you giving us?
This is the one that I got after. This is the official list after all my analysis.
Oh, okay. All right.
I don't have the first list anymore. It's gone.
Okay.
Number 12, I have PBJ. Number 11, I've got the Duplex. Number 10, I've got Iron Pirate. Number 9, I've got the Choops. Number 8, I've got TDJ. And at 7, I have Hillers.
Wow, that's as high as I'm getting.
And the reason you're there, Hillers, is your tight end and Aaron Rodgers.
Yep.
Giving you an advantage over most teams every week.
They're very solid.
Nick, do you have any input from 6 to 1?
Wiener is number 1.
Thank you, Nick. Hillers.
But I will say this. I have no glaring. Where you guys rank the bottom 16, where you guys have the teams ranked, like in what tiers, like between A and B tiers, I don't have a problem with that all. That's where I would have them too.
You think those teams are the bottom half, basically?
Those teams are definitely the bottom half, and these next teams are definitely the top half. Without necessarily hearing the orders, like.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So I would agree that these are the right halves.
Okay. Hillers.
6, End Zone Bombardment Squad.
Okay.
5, the Black Widows. 4, the Duplex of Mediocrity. 3, the Dead Dicks. 2, Kangaroo Court. And 1, the Masters of Elliott.
All right, I'm not trying to defend my team here, but I'm just wondering.
I put you number 3. I put
how
you
put Dave's team above.
Yeah, I put you at 3.
And also, I did this in about 45 seconds right before we started.
Okay,
and it
fair
was
enough.
very confusing.
No offense to Dave. Dave has way more success.
3 titles!
Yeah, so as an owner, Dave gets a bit. I should have made that a category. Ownership. Yeah, that would have moved me right to the bottom.
Well, I mean, how is he not? His quarterback situation has got to be at the top of your thing. Is his running back situation and wide receiver, they're all kind of up there. It's a good team. It's all around.
Okay, Hillers.
Okay.
No?
At 6, I've got End Zone Bombardment Squad. 5, I have the Assassins. At 4, I have Wiener. At 3, I have the Widows. I don't know why I have Winier at 4. That's weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not a good pick.
His running backs.
1.
His running backs, I have as a problem. At 3, I have the Widows. At 2, I've got Kangaroo Court. And at 1, I have the Dad Digs, which was the most shocking thing after I did all the analysis. I was like, because that was somebody I think I had at like 6. And then
Merrill,
up
all
to
right.
1.
So, Hillers, I pretty much agree with your top 6. And Merrill, I agree with your bottom 6-ish. I don't really with.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's going to do it, gentlemen. We're going to end it here. It's been too long. We're not going to do predictions. Those will be next week or whenever we decide to.
Whenever.
So, you don't like it, deal with it. Do your own damn podcast.
Do your own damn podcast. That's the motto of our podcast.
Hashtag
Do your own damn podcast.
your own damn podcast.
I'd like to thank our commish for joining us. I'd like to thank our former commish for joining us as well. And our current co-commish, I'd like to thank him as well. Well, you're welcome, Mike. All right. For Hillers, for Nick, this is Merrill saying we will talk to you guys later.